The Force binds all things across the galaxy, connecting every living being in an invisible web of energy and life. For millennia, the Jedi have studied its mysteries, believing they understood the fundamental nature of power itself. But what happens when something crashes into their reality, something that doesn't draw from the Force, doesn't bow to its rules, and operates on an entirely different form of energy? What happens when raw, gamma-powered rage collides with a galaxy at war? The Battle of Christophsis had been raging for 3 standard weeks. Republic forces, led by Jedi Generals Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker, were entrenched in the capital city, defending against wave after wave of Separatist battle droids. The shields were holding, but barely. Clone troopers manned every defensive position, their white armor scorched and battle-worn. In the command center, holographic projections showed the grim reality. They were outnumbered 5-1, and reinforcements were still 2 days out. "We need to hold the eastern perimeter," Obi-Wan said, stroking his beard as he studied the tactical display. "If they break through there, they'll have a clear path to the shield generators." Anakin's jaw tightened. "We're spread too thin as it is. We need something to change, or we're..." The entire command center shook. Not from an explosion, this was different. The lights flickered, and every hologram distorted simultaneously. Through the viewport, a streak of brilliant green energy tore across the sky, leaving a burning contrail that seemed wrong somehow, like the atmosphere itself was rejecting whatever had entered it. What was that? Captain Rex moved to the window, his helmet tilted upward. Above Christophsis, reality had torn. Dr. Bruce Banner had been conducting highly classified gamma radiation experiments on a remote research station in his universe, attempting to harness dimensional energy for clean power generation. The calculations had been perfect. The containment field had been rated for 3 times the expected output. But the one variable he hadn't accounted for was his own transformation. When the reactor began to overload, Banner's heart rate spiked. The gamma radiation flooding his system triggered the change, but this time, during a dimensional breach. The Hulk emerged in the space between universes, his roar of rage creating a shockwave that punched through the fabric of reality itself. Now, something green and burning plummeted through Christophsis' atmosphere, trailing energy that made clone trooper scanners scream with incomprehensible readings. The object, because surely it had to be an object, nothing living could survive that entry, crashed into the Separatist staging ground 6 kilometers east of the Republic position. The impact registered on seismic sensors. A mushroom cloud of dust and debris rose into the amber sky. Separatist weapon? Rex suggested, but his voice carried doubt. Obi-Wan closed his eyes, reaching out through the Force. What he sensed made him stagger backward. It wasn't dark side energy, but it wasn't light either. It was something else entirely, primal, furious, and alive in a way that had nothing to do with midichlorians. "No," he whispered. "That's not a weapon. That's... I don't know what that is." Anakin was already moving toward the hangar. "Then let's find out before the Separatists do." In the crater, 6 kilometers away, the Hulk rose from molten stone. His massive form, nearly 3 meters tall and rippling with muscle that defied conventional biology, emerged from the smoke. Green skin, impossible green, a color that didn't exist in this galaxy's natural spectrum, seemed to radiate heat. His eyes, burning with incandescent fury from the traumatic dimensional crossing, scanned the alien landscape. Battle droids were the first to respond. A full battalion of B-1 units marched toward the crater in perfect formation, blaster rifles raised. Their vocabulators processed the threat assessment: large bipedal organism, origin unknown, approach with caution. "Halt," the lead droid commanded in its tinny voice. "Surrender or be destroyed." The Hulk's response was a roar that shattered droid audio receptors within 50 meters. The sound wave itself knocked the first rank of droids backward, their chassis crumpling like foil. Then he moved. What happened next would be analyzed by Republic tactical computers for weeks afterward, and they would never quite believe their own sensor logs. The Hulk leaped, actually leaped, clearing 200 meters in a single bound that shattered the ground beneath his feet. He landed in the center of the droid formation, and the shockwave alone destroyed a dozen units. His fists became green blurs. Each punch sent droids flying, their metal bodies folding around his knuckles before spinning away like broken toys. He grabbed a super battle droid by the arm and used it as a club, smashing through an entire platoon before the improvised weapon simply disintegrated from the force of impacts. Blaster bolts struck his skin and dissipated, the energy insufficient to even register as damage against his gamma-enhanced cellular structure. A spider droid, 3 stories tall and bristling with laser cannons, emerged from behind a rock formation. All 4 of its main batteries fired simultaneously, the concentrated energy enough to vaporize a gunship. The Hulk crossed his arms in front of his face, and the blast washed over him. When the smoke cleared, he was still standing, his skin slightly singed but already healing. The Hulk grabbed one of the spider droid's legs and pulled. Metal shrieked. Hydraulics burst. With a sound like thunder, he tore the entire leg free and drove it through the droid's central processor like a spear. The machine collapsed, explosions rippling through its chassis. Overhead, Anakin's starfighter streaked across the battlefield, Obi-Wan in the gunner seat behind him. They had a perfect view of the carnage below. Hundreds of droids, reduced to scrap metal. And in the center of it all, a green giant that moved with impossible speed and strength. By the Force, Obi-Wan breathed. What is that thing? Anakin's scanners were going haywire. I'm not reading any mechanical components. It's biological. Alive. But those energy signatures, Master, I've never seen anything like this. Below, the Hulk had run out of droids to smash. He stood in the center of a field of twisted metal and sparking circuits, chest heaving, fists still clenched. Slowly, as the adrenaline began to fade, his massive form started to shrink. The green skin lightened. The muscles compacted. Within 30 seconds, where the Hulk had stood, a very human-looking man collapsed to his knees, naked and gasping for breath. Dr. Bruce Banner looked up at the alien sky, at the unfamiliar constellations, at the burning wreckage around him, and realized with horror that he had no idea where, or when, he was. "Oh no," he whispered. "Not again." If you want to see more characters enter the Star Wars galaxy, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character you'd want to see in the comments below. May the Force be with you. Anakin brought his fighter in for a landing 50 meters from the mysterious man. Both Jedi ignited their lightsabers as they approached, Anakin's blue blade and Obi-Wan's steady blue glow casting strange shadows across Banner's exhausted form. Clone troopers from a nearby patrol were seconds behind, their rifles trained on the target. Banner raised his hands slowly, his body still trembling from the transformation. "Please," he said in a language that, impossibly, they could all understand, the dimensional breach had somehow granted him comprehension of basic. "I'm not here to hurt anyone. I'm lost. I don't even know where here is." Obi-Wan studied the man carefully through the Force. There was something deeply wrong about him, not evil, but fractured. 2 presences in one body, like a bomb waiting to detonate. "Who are you?" he asked gently. Bruce Banner looked at the Jedi Master, at the glowing energy blade that defied everything he knew about physics, at the clone soldiers in their white armor, at the burning droid remains, and felt his heart rate beginning to climb again. "My name is Dr. Bruce Banner," he said carefully, fighting to stay calm. "And you really don't want to make me angry." The Republic medical frigate Resolute orbited Christophsis like a steel sentinel, its white hull reflecting the system's distant sun. In the medical bay, Bruce Banner sat on an examination table wrapped in a thermal blanket, surrounded by medical droids that kept a cautious 3-meter distance. Their sensors had attempted to scan him 17 times. 17 times, their instruments had returned impossible readings, cellular structures that shouldn't exist, energy signatures that matched no known life form in the galactic database, and radiation levels that should have killed him 1,000 times over. Fascinating, the medical droid designated AZ-7 said, its optical sensors zooming in and out as it studied Banner from across the room. Your cellular density is approximately 40 times that of a standard human, yet you appear completely baseline when calm. Banner pulled the blanket tighter. They'd given him basic Republic military fatigues, but nothing could make him feel less exposed. I've heard that before. Look, I appreciate the medical attention, but I really need to speak with whoever's in charge. I need to understand where I am. You're in the Christophsis system, Outer Rim territories, a voice said from the doorway. Obi-Wan Kenobi entered, his hands clasped behind his back in a posture that seemed designed to appear non-threatening. Anakin followed, his expression far more openly curious. As for when, the year is 21 BBY by our calendar. Though I suspect that means nothing to you. Banner's mind raced, processing the information. Different calendar, different constellations, technology that violated several fundamental laws of physics as he understood them. I'm not from here, he said quietly. I mean, not just this planet. This entire reality, I think. I was conducting an experiment, there was an accident, and he stopped, his jaw tightening. And my other half punched through a dimensional barrier. Your other half. Anakin moved closer, and Banner noticed his hand rested near the cylindrical weapon on his belt, that impossible laser sword. You mean the green giant that destroyed an entire droid battalion in under 2 minutes? The Hulk. Banner's voice was hollow. That's what I call him. It. Me. I don't know anymore. I was exposed to massive amounts of gamma radiation, a type of energy that probably doesn't even exist here. It should have killed me. Instead, it changed me. Now, when I get angry or my heart rate spikes, I transform into something else. Something stronger. Angrier. Obi-Wan stroked his beard thoughtfully. Through the Force, he could sense the truth in Banner's words, but also the deep well of fear and self-loathing beneath them. And you cannot control these transformations? I've tried everything. Banner's hands clenched the blanket. Meditation, breathing techniques, isolation. Nothing works permanently. The Hulk comes out when he wants to come out. And when he does, he gestured toward the viewport, where the surface of Christophsis was visible below, smoke still rising from the battlefield. You saw what happens. A tense silence filled the medical bay. AZ-7 sensors continued their futile attempts to make sense of Banner's biology. Finally, Anakin spoke, his voice carrying an edge of something Banner couldn't quite identify, recognition, perhaps. You're afraid of yourself. Banner met the young Jedi's eyes. Every second of every day. Because I've seen what the Hulk can do when there's no one to stop him. Cities leveled. Armies scattered. And the worst part? His voice dropped to a whisper. Sometimes I'm not sure if he's really a separate person, or if he's just me without the inhibitions. All my anger and frustration and rage, given form and limitless strength. Obi-Wan exchanged a glance with Anakin. The Padawan's struggle with his own darker impulses was well known to the Council, carefully managed but never truly resolved. Here was someone who embodied that internal conflict in the most literal way possible. The Jedi Council will want to speak with you, Obi-Wan said carefully. Your arrival was felt throughout the Force, a disruption unlike anything in recorded history. They'll have questions. The Force? Banner's scientific mind immediately engaged despite his exhaustion. That's what you call that energy I've been sensing? It's like background radiation, but conscious somehow. Interconnected. His eyes widened. Wait, are you saying you can manipulate some kind of universal energy field? That's theoretically impossible unless, he stopped himself. Sorry. Occupational hazard. I have 7 PhDs back home. Physics, biology, nuclear engineering. Old habits. Anakin's eyebrows rose. 7. That's impressive. It's a curse when you can't sleep because your brain won't shut off, Banner replied with a bitter smile. But it means I might actually be able to help you understand what happened. The dimensional breach, the energy signatures, maybe even find a way back. His expression darkened. Though I'm not sure my universe would want me back. Before anyone could respond, the medical bay doors hissed open. Captain Rex strode in, his helmet under his arm, his expression grim. Generals, we have a situation. Separatist fleet just jumped into the system. 3 Providence-class destroyers and a Subjugator-class heavy cruiser. They're hailing us. Count Dooku, Obi-Wan muttered. He must have detected the energy surge as well. The holographic projection flickered to life in the center of the medical bay. Count Dooku's aristocratic features appeared, his white beard and elegant bearing giving him the appearance of a refined scholar rather than a Sith Lord. His eyes, however, were sharp and calculating as they swept across the room and settled on Banner. General Kenobi, Dooku said smoothly. How fortuitous to find you here. I believe you have something that belongs to the Confederacy of Independent Systems. A weapon that crashed into our staging area and destroyed considerable military assets. I'm not a weapon, Banner said firmly, before either Jedi could respond. And I don't belong to anyone. Dooku's smile was cold. Ah, it speaks. Tell me, creature, do you have any understanding of the forces you've disrupted? The war you've stumbled into? The Republic will use you, exploit your power until you're spent, and then discard you like a broken tool. At least we in the Confederacy are honest about our intentions. Banner felt his heart rate beginning to climb. The arrogance in Dooku's voice, the casual dismissal, the assumption that he was property to be claimed, it triggered every instinct that led to the Hulk. He forced himself to breathe slowly, to focus on the breathing techniques that sometimes worked. I'm not anyone's weapon. Obi-Wan stepped slightly in front of Banner, a protective gesture. The man is under Republic protection, Dooku. Whatever you're planning, abandon it now. Protection? Dooku's laugh was genuinely amused. My dear Kenobi, you cannot protect him from himself. I can sense it through the Force, the rage burning inside him, the darkness waiting to emerge. The Jedi will fear him, and fear will lead them to cage him or destroy him. But his voice dropped, becoming almost hypnotic. I could teach him to control that power. To embrace it. To use it without fear or restraint. Banner's hands gripped the edges of the examination table, his knuckles white. The metal began to groan under the pressure. Get off this channel. Anakin moved to terminate the transmission, but Dooku wasn't finished. I will make you an offer, Dr. Banner. Surrender yourself to Confederate custody within 1 standard hour, and I will guarantee no harm comes to the Republic forces on Christophsis. Refuse, and I will be forced to take you by more aggressive means. The civilians in the city below will, of course, suffer the consequences. The hologram winked out. Banner was on his feet, the blanket falling away. His breathing was rapid, his skin beginning to show the faintest tinge of green around the edges. He's bluffing. Tell me he's bluffing. He's a Sith Lord, Obi-Wan said quietly. He'll do exactly what he threatens if he believes it serves his purposes. The Separatists have no compunctions about civilian casualties. Then I have to go. Banner moved toward the door, but Anakin blocked his path with surprising speed. Get out of my way. I won't let innocent people die because of me. And that's exactly what he's counting on, Anakin said. The moment you step foot on that cruiser, you become their weapon. They'll study you, replicate your power if they can, and use it against millions across the galaxy. Banner's eyes were wild, his pupils dilating. What choice do I have? I'm a living disaster. Everywhere I go, people get hurt. At least if I surrender, it's contained to just me. Rex's voice was firm. With respect, sir, that's not how we do things in the Republic. We don't abandon people just because it's convenient. The captain is right, Obi-Wan said, placing a hand on Banner's shoulder. Through the Force, he could feel the man's internal struggle, the desperate battle to maintain control. You are not a weapon, Dr. Banner. You're a person who's been given a terrible burden. Let us help you carry it. Banner's laugh was harsh and broken. You don't understand. The Hulk doesn't need help. He doesn't want help. He just wants to smash everything in his path until there's nothing left to break. And every time he comes out, it gets harder to come back. One day, I'm going to transform and I won't change back. I'll just be the Hulk forever. The ship trembled. All eyes turned to the viewport, where Dooku's fleet had moved into attack formation. Starfighters were launching, their angular forms swarming toward the Republic vessels like insects. 1 hour, Anakin said grimly. He really is going to do it. Banner looked at each of them, the Jedi with their mystical powers, the clone soldier with his unwavering loyalty, the medical droid still trying to understand his impossible biology. They were willing to risk a war for him. A stranger. A monster. His next words came out in a whisper. Then we'd better figure out a plan that doesn't involve me losing control. Because if the Hulk comes out in the middle of your city, he met Obi-Wan's eyes. There won't be anything left to protect. The Jedi Temple on Coruscant rose like a mountain of burnished stone and ancient wisdom, its 5 spires reaching toward a sky crisscrossed with endless streams of air traffic. In the council chamber at the summit of the tallest spire, 12 of the galaxy's most powerful Force users sat in a circle, their expressions ranging from curiosity to deep concern. Holographic projectors displayed the footage from Christophsis on repeat, the green meteor's arrival, the Hulk's devastating rampage through the droid army, and Banner's subsequent transformation back to human form. Master Yoda, his ancient eyes half closed in contemplation, watched the footage for the 7th time. His gnarled fingers tapped against his Jimmer stick in a rhythm that suggested deep thought. Beside him, Mace Windu's expression was carved from stone, his dark eyes never leaving the projection of the Hulk tearing through battle droids like they were constructed from paper. Unprecedented, this is, Yoda said softly. A being of such power, yet not of the Force. Felt nothing through our connection to the living Force, we did. As if he exists, outside it. Obi-Wan stood in the center of the circle, his hands clasped behind his back. He'd left Anakin to coordinate the defense of Christophsis while he made the emergency hyperspace jump to Coruscant with Banner. The Council had demanded an immediate audience. Dr. Banner has been cooperative, Masters. He's answered every question, submitted to medical examination, and shown no hostility toward Republic forces. In fact, he's expressed genuine remorse for the destruction caused during his episode. Remorse means nothing if he cannot control himself, Mace Windu said flatly. We've reviewed the sensor data. The energy output during his transformation exceeded anything we've encountered outside of capital ship reactors. If he were to transform here, on Coruscant, he didn't need to finish the sentence. The images spoke for themselves. Ki-Adi-Mundi leaned forward, his elongated head furrowed with concern. Has he explained the nature of his condition? Is it a disease? A mutation? Some form of Sith alchemy? He calls it gamma radiation, Obi-Wan replied. A form of energy that doesn't exist in our galaxy as far as we can determine. In his universe, he was a scientist conducting experiments when an accident exposed him to lethal doses. Instead of dying, his body adapted. Now, extreme stress or anger triggers a transformation into what he calls the Hulk, a being of apparently limitless physical strength and durability. Plo Koon's masked face turned toward the hologram. The footage shows blaster bolts having no effect. Even concentrated fire from heavy weapons. How do we contain such a being if he becomes hostile? We don't, came a voice from the doorway. Bruce Banner stood there, flanked by 2 clone shock troopers, wearing the simple brown robes the Jedi had provided. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes suggesting he hadn't slept since arriving. That's the point I've been trying to make. If the Hulk truly wants to break free, nothing you have can stop him. I've been contained by technology decades beyond what I've seen here, energy cages that could hold a small sun, neural suppressors that could shut down a person's entire nervous system, and the Hulk broke through all of it. The council chamber fell silent. Several Jedi exchanged uncomfortable glances. The idea that there existed a force they couldn't counter, couldn't contain, went against everything their order represented. Yoda studied Banner with eyes that had witnessed centuries of galactic history. Fear yourself, you do. Sense it clearly, I can. But fear leads to anger, and anger leads to transformation. Banner finished, a bitter smile crossing his face. Yeah, I've figured that part out. It's a perfect trap. I'm afraid of getting angry because getting angry makes me into the thing I'm afraid of. Circular logic at its finest. He stepped further into the chamber, the shock troopers remaining at the door. Look, I understand your concern. If I were in your position, I'd be terrified too. But I didn't ask to come here. I don't want to be part of your war. I just want to find a way home before something happens that we'll all regret. Shock Ti's voice was gentle but probing. The Force connects all living things, Dr. Banner. Yet when we reach out to sense you, there is resistance. As if you exist within a void. How is this possible? Banner's scientific mind engaged despite his exhaustion. I've been thinking about that. Your Force seems to operate on quantum entanglement principles, every particle in the universe connected through some kind of fundamental field. But gamma radiation in my universe operates on different quantum rules. Maybe my cellular structure is literally incompatible with your force field. Like trying to run software designed for one operating system on completely different hardware. Mace Windu's eyes narrowed. You speak of the Force as if it were mere technology. No disrespect intended, Banner said quickly, sensing the tension. I'm just trying to understand it in terms I can work with. Where I come from, we had gods and monsters too, but they all operated according to underlying physical laws. Magic is just science we don't understand yet. Dangerous, such thinking is, Yoda said, though his tone carried more curiosity than admonishment. The Force, much more than particles and quantum states it is. Life, consciousness, connection, these things not reduced to equations, they cannot be. Banner started to respond, then stopped himself. His heart rate was climbing. The frustration of being interrogated, the exhaustion, the constant fear, it was all building. He could feel the familiar tingle at the base of his skull, the first warning sign. I need to leave, he said abruptly. Right now. Obi-Wan recognized the signs immediately. Everyone remain calm. Dr. Banner, focus on your breathing. We're not your enemies. I know that. Banner's voice was strained. But my body doesn't care about logic. It's responding to perceived threats, and a room full of powerful beings staring at me like I'm a bomb about to explode is definitely registering as a threat. His hands were shaking now. Please. I need space. Somewhere isolated. Now. Kit Fisto rose from his seat. The lower meditation chambers. They're shielded in. The chamber doors exploded inward. Not from Banner, from outside. Senate guards burst in, their blue robes torn and scorched, followed by a full platoon of clone shock troopers in red-marked armor. Behind them, moving with predatory grace, came something that made Banner's blood run cold. The creature stood nearly 2 meters tall, humanoid but clearly not human. Its skin was mottled gray and black, stretched tight over ropey muscle. Where eyes should have been were empty sockets that somehow still saw. Its mouth was a lipless gash filled with needle teeth. But worst of all were its hands, elongated fingers ending in claws that dripped with some viscous substance that hissed when it struck the floor. Sith spawn, Mace Windu breathed, his lightsaber igniting in his hand. All around the circle, purple, blue, and green blades sprang to life. The creature hissed, and Banner understood with horrifying clarity what had happened. Dooku hadn't waited for his hour deadline. He'd sent an assassin, something designed to get past Republic security. And it had been sent specifically for him. "Get Banner out of here," Obi-Wan commanded, but the creature was already moving. It crossed the chamber in a blur of motion, faster than Banner's eyes could track. Clone troopers opened fire, their blaster bolts searing through the air. Some struck the creature's hide and sizzled against it without effect. Others it dodged with impossible agility. 3 Jedi moved to intercept, their lightsabers weaving defensive patterns. The spawn went through them like they weren't there. Not because it overpowered them, it was simply too fast, too unpredictable. A claw lashed out and caught Shaak Ti across the arm. She cried out, stumbling backward as the wound began to smoke. Poison. Then the creature was in front of Banner, moving faster than anything that size had any right to move. One claw rose, aimed directly at his chest. Banner's mind calculated the trajectory in microseconds, his brilliant scientific brain processing every angle, every variable. He was going to die. Right here, in an alien galaxy, killed by a monster while surrounded by mystical warriors. His body had a different response to that realization. "No," Banner whispered. Then, louder, "No." The transformation was instantaneous. His body exploded outward, mass appearing from nowhere as gamma radiation rewrote the laws of physics in a localized field around him. Clothes shredded. Skin shifted from pale to emerald green. Muscles expanded like pneumatic pistons filling with pressure. In the space between one heartbeat and the next, Bruce Banner ceased to exist, and the Hulk took his place. The Sith spawn's claw, sharp enough to pierce durasteel, struck the Hulk's chest and snapped like a dry twig. The creature had one moment to process this impossibility before a green fist the size of its entire torso caught it in the center of mass. The impact generated a shockwave that shattered 3 of the council chamber's viewport windows. The spawn flew backward, crashed through the wall with enough force to compromise the structural integrity of the entire section, and disappeared into the Coruscant sky, trailing smoke. The Hulk stood in the center of the council chamber, chest heaving, eyes burning with primal fury. He was taller than in the Christophsis footage, nearly 3.5 meters now, his rage having pushed him to even greater size. The air around him shimmered with heat radiating from his body. His fists clenched and unclenched, each movement accompanied by the crack of joints under impossible pressure. 12 Jedi Knights stared at him. 30 clone troopers had their weapons trained on him. The most powerful Force users in the galaxy prepared themselves for battle. The Hulk looked around the chamber at the faces frozen between fear and determination. His lip curled, showing teeth that could bite through durasteel. When he spoke, his voice was like an avalanche given form, deep, resonant, and utterly devoid of Banner's intellectual precision. "Hulk, not weapon." The words hung in the air. Then, incredibly, the green began to fade. The massive form began to shrink. Muscles compacted. Height decreased. Within 30 seconds, Bruce Banner collapsed to his knees in the center of the shattered chamber, naked and gasping, surrounded by the broken remnants of his borrowed robes. Yoda moved forward with his shuffling gait, his ancient face unreadable. He stopped directly in front of Banner and looked up at him with eyes that had seen the rise and fall of civilizations. "Control, you have," Yoda said slowly, wonder evident in his voice. "Came back, you did. Choose to return," the Hulk did. Banner looked up, tears streaming down his face. "I don't, that's never happened before. He never just changes back like that." His voice broke. "What is this place? What are you people doing to me?" Obi-Wan draped his own robe around Banner's shoulders. "Perhaps," he said gently, "the question isn't what we're doing to you. Perhaps it's what you're finally doing for yourself." Outside the shattered windows, somewhere in Coruscant's endless cityscape, the Sith spawn was crawling through an alley, its body broken but regenerating slowly. It would return to its master with news. The weapon had been found. And it was far more dangerous than Count Dooku had anticipated. Count Dooku stood on the observation deck of his personal starship, the Insurgent, watching the stars streak past through hyperspace. His hands were clasped behind his back, his posture radiating the aristocratic bearing that had defined him even before he'd abandoned the Jedi Order. Before him, projected in flickering blue hologram, knelt the broken form of his Sith spawn assassin. The creature was still regenerating, its toxin-laced claws slowly regrowing, but the damage it had sustained was extensive. "Explain to me," Dooku said with dangerous calm, "how a creature specifically bred and enhanced through Sith alchemy to kill Force-sensitive targets was defeated by a being that doesn't even register in the Force." The spawn hissed its report in the guttural language of Dathomir's dark side practitioners. Dooku's eyes narrowed as he processed the information. The transformation. The impossible strength. The calculated strike that had sent his assassin flying through reinforced temple walls. And most intriguing of all, the transformation back. Control where there should have been none. "Fascinating," Dooku murmured. He turned to the figure standing in the shadows behind him. "What do you make of this, General?" General Grievous stepped into the dim light, his mechanical body clicking and whirring with each movement. The cyborg's yellow eyes gleamed with predatory interest. "A powerful opponent. I would enjoy adding his strength to my collection." His mechanical hand drifted to the lightsabers hanging from his belt, trophies taken from Jedi he'd killed. "Your collection?" A woman's voice, smooth as silk and twice as deadly, emerged from another entrance to the observation deck. Asajj Ventress glided forward, her twin lightsabers hanging from her hips, her pale skin marked with Sith tattoos. "The creature is clearly mine to claim, Dooku. You promised me the next challenge worthy of my skills." Dooku raised a hand, silencing them both. "Neither of you will face him. Not yet. Dr. Banner represents something far more valuable than another trophy or test of skill." He gestured, and the hologram shifted to display the footage his spy droids had captured of the Council chamber incident. The transformation played in slow motion, Banner's body erupting into the Hulk's massive form, the impossible physics of mass appearing from nowhere. "The Republic cannot control him," Dooku continued. "The Jedi fear him, I could sense it even through the Force during our transmission. He's powerful, isolated, and desperate to return to wherever he came from. These are the ingredients for recruitment, not confrontation." Grievous' mechanical laugh was like grinding gears. "You believe you can turn him to the Confederacy? He destroyed an entire battalion of my droids." "Your droids attacked first," Dooku pointed out. "Banner has shown remarkable restraint given his condition. He doesn't want to fight. He wants to go home." The Sith Lord's smile was cold calculation. "And we're going to help him do exactly that, in exchange for his cooperation." Ventress circled the hologram, studying the Hulk's form with professional interest. "The Jedi will never allow it. They'll keep him locked away, studied like some laboratory animal." "Precisely." Dooku's fingers steepled. "Which is why we're going to offer him something they cannot, freedom. We dropped the blockade at Christophsis. We provide him with access to our most advanced scientific facilities. We help him research dimensional physics and find a way home." He paused. "And in return, he provides us with a few small favors. Protection for our research stations. Deterrent against Republic aggression. Nothing that requires him to kill, just his presence. His power." "And if he refuses?" Grievous asked. "Then we ensure the Republic gives him no choice." Dooku's expression darkened. "The Senate is already in an uproar over his presence. Senator Orn Free Taa has called for his immediate containment. Senator Bail Organa argues for his rights, but he's outnumbered. The Republic security apparatus is preparing protocols to neutralize Banner should he prove unstable. They'll cage him, study him, and eventually use him just as we would, but without the honesty of offering him a choice first." The hologram shifted again, this time displaying the interior of the Jedi Temple's medical facility. Banner sat on an examination table, surrounded by monitoring equipment. Even through the blue projection, his exhaustion and fear were evident. He was wrapped in simple robes, his hands trembling slightly as he spoke with a medical droid. "He looks broken," Ventress observed. "Defeated." "He looks ready to listen," Dooku corrected. "Ready for someone to offer him hope." He gestured, and the hologram dissolved. "Ventress, I want you to make contact. Not as an enemy, as an ally. You understand what it means to be feared for your power, to be used by those who claim to help you." Ventress's hand instinctively moved to where her Dathomir clan marks had once been, before her fall and transformation. "The Jedi won't let me anywhere near their temple." "The Jedi aren't holding him at the temple," Dooku said with satisfaction. Mace Windu insisted he be moved to a more secure location, a Republic detention facility on Coruscant's industrial level. Officially for his protection and the safety of the temple. Unofficially, he smiled. They're already treating him like a prisoner. Level 2447 of Coruscant was a far cry from the gleaming spires and pristine architecture of the Senate District. Here, massive factories belched smoke and steam into air that tasted of metal and industrial solvents. The Republic detention facility was a squat, reinforced structure designed to hold the galaxy's most dangerous criminals and prisoners of war. Its walls were durasteel 3 meters thick. Its cells were equipped with ray shields capable of containing a rampaging Wookiee. Its guard complement consisted of 2 full companies of clone shock troopers and a complement of automated defense turrets. Bruce Banner sat in cell 447B, which the guards had assured him was completely voluntary protective custody. The cell was 10 meters by 10 meters, furnished with a bed, a small desk, and a refresher unit. One wall was entirely transparent, allowing him to see the clone guards stationed outside. They'd been courteous, professional, and utterly unambiguous about the fact that he wasn't leaving without explicit council authorization. He'd been here for 6 hours. 6 hours of sitting, thinking, and trying not to think about the fact that he was, once again, in a cell. The circumstances were different, these people were genuinely trying to help, or at least trying to contain a dangerous situation. But the result was the same. Isolation. Containment. Imprisonment. His hands trembled as he tried to focus on the datapad they'd provided. It contained information about this galaxy, star charts, historical records, basic scientific principles. He'd been devouring it, his brilliant mind racing to understand this new reality. The Force was the key. If he could understand its fundamental mechanics, he might be able to reverse engineer the dimensional breach that had brought him here. But every time he tried to concentrate, his mind returned to the council chamber. To the moment when the Hulk had emerged and, for the first time in years, had chosen to return. Had actually transformed back of his own accord, not because Banner had regained control but because the Hulk himself had decided to stand down. What did that mean? Was the Hulk evolving? Becoming more than just rage-given form? Or was this galaxy somehow changing the fundamental nature of his condition? The ray shield at the front of his cell flickered, then died. Banner looked up sharply. The clone guards were slumped against the walls, unconscious but breathing. In the corridor beyond, a pale figure in dark robes moved like smoke, her twin lightsabers ignited and glowing crimson in the dim light. Asajj Ventress stepped over the fallen guards with casual grace, her yellow eyes studying Banner with predatory interest. "Dr. Banner," she said, her voice surprisingly gentle. "Please don't be alarmed. I'm here to offer you a choice the Jedi won't give you." Banner was on his feet, his heart rate immediately spiking. "Stay back. I don't want to hurt you, but if you're here to kidnap you, kill you." Ventress deactivated her lightsabers, hooking them to her belt in a gesture of peace. "If that were my intention, you'd never have woken up. I'm here to talk. Nothing more." She gestured to the cell. Though I notice your protectors have you in a high-security detention facility. Strange hospitality. It's for everyone's safety, Banner said, but his voice lacked conviction. Of course it is. Ventress moved closer to the ray shield's opening but didn't enter. I know what it's like, Dr. Banner. To be powerful and feared for that power. To have those who claim to help you actually just want to control you. The Jedi speak of peace and freedom, but look where you are. Caged. Monitored. One step away from being dissected to unlock your secrets. They're trying to help me get home. Are they? Ventress tilted her head. Have they offered you access to their scientific facilities? Their holocrons containing centuries of knowledge about dimensional anomalies? Or have they simply run tests, asked questions, and made you feel like a specimen under glass? Banner's jaw tightened. She wasn't wrong. The Jedi had been kind, but they'd also been distant. Clinical. Every conversation had felt like an interrogation disguised as concern. And now he was here, in a cell that was voluntary, in name only. What do you want? He asked quietly. Count Dooku wants to make you an offer, Ventress said. Real help. Access to the Confederacy's most advanced research stations. Scientists who understand dimensional physics, yes, we have them. The resources to actually build a device that could send you home. She paused. And most importantly, the freedom to work without being treated like a dangerous animal. In exchange for what? Becoming your weapon. In exchange for deterrence. Ventress's expression was surprisingly honest. Your presence at key facilities. Your agreement not to interfere with separatist operations. We don't need you to fight, your reputation will do that for us. The Republic won't risk attacking a station they know you're protecting. Banner laughed bitterly. So I go from being the Republic's prisoner to being your shield. How is that different? Because we're being honest about what we're asking, Ventress replied. The Jedi will use you whether you want them to or not. When the war turns against them, and it will, they'll find a way to weaponize you. They'll tell themselves it's for the greater good, that your sacrifice means saving billions. But in the end, you'll still be the Hulk, smashing their enemies because they've given you no other choice. She stepped back, preparing to leave. Count Dooku doesn't expect an answer now. He knows you need time to think. But consider this, how long before the Jedi Council decides you're too dangerous to send home? How long before they conclude that the galaxy is safer with you locked away forever? They've done it before to beings they feared. They'll do it again. Ventress vanished into the shadows, leaving Banner alone with her words echoing in his mind. Outside, the clone guards began to stir, groaning as they regained consciousness. Alarms would sound soon. The cell's ray shield would reactivate. And Banner would be right back where he started, trapped, isolated, and forced to trust people who saw him as a problem to be solved rather than a person to be helped. His hands clenched into fists. His heart rate climbed. The familiar green tinge appeared at the edges of his vision. No. Not now. He forced himself to breathe, to use every technique he'd developed over years of managing his condition. The green receded. His pulse slowed. But the anger remained, coiled in his chest like a living thing. For the first time since arriving in this galaxy, Bruce Banner began to wonder if the Hulk had the right idea all along. Maybe the answer wasn't control. Maybe it was choosing when and where to stop holding back. The foundry on Geonosis had been operational for less than 3 months, but it had already produced over 50,000 battle droids for the Separatist war effort. The facility sprawled across 12 square kilometers of rust-colored desert, its massive smokestacks belching ash into the perpetually orange sky. Deep underground, in reinforced chambers designed to withstand orbital bombardment, assembly lines worked around the clock. Conveyor belts carried components through automated construction sequences. Welding droids sparked and hissed as they fused metal joints. Quality control processors scanned each unit for defects before stamping them with the Techno-Union seal of approval. In the facility's command center, Tambor monitored production quotas with mechanical precision. The Skakoan's pressure suit hissed rhythmically as he reviewed holographic displays showing efficiency ratings, resource consumption, and projected output. Everything was proceeding according to schedule. The Republic had no knowledge of this facility's existence. Their intelligence networks remained focused on the primary foundries in the Northern Hemisphere, never suspecting that Tambor had constructed this secondary operation beneath the desert itself. Which made it the perfect place to bring their newest acquisition. Bruce Banner stood on the observation platform overlooking the main assembly floor, his hands gripping the railing hard enough to make his knuckles white. 2 days had passed since Ventress's visit to his cell. 2 days of careful negotiation, impossible promises, and a growing realization that he had no good options. The Jedi Council had been considering his request for access to their scientific archives. The Republic Senate was debating protocols for managing extraordinary biological threats. And every hour he remained in that cell, the walls had seemed to press closer. So when Dooku had sent another transmission, this one offering immediate transport to a fully equipped research facility, no strings attached beyond, remaining available for consultation, Banner had made a choice he knew he'd likely regret. Impressive, isn't it? Count Dooku materialized beside him, his presence announced only by his voice. The Sith Lord's refined features showed satisfaction as he gazed down at the manufacturing process. 700 units per standard hour. Each one capable of combat operations that would require 3 Republic soldiers to counter effectively. The mathematics of this war are quite simple, Dr. Banner. We can produce soldiers faster than they can train them. Banner's voice was flat. You're mass-producing death. Congratulations. I'm mass-producing leverage, Dooku corrected smoothly. The Republic is corrupt, Dr. Banner. A bloated bureaucracy strangling the life from thousands of systems through taxation, regulation, and Senate oversight that serves only the core worlds. The Outer Rim has been neglected for millennia. We seek only independence, the right to govern ourselves without Coruscant's interference. By building an army of robots to kill anyone who disagrees. Banner turned to face him directly. I've heard this speech before. Different galaxy, same tyrants. They all think they're justified. Dooku's expression didn't change, but something cold flickered behind his eyes. And yet you're here, accepting my hospitality, because you know the alternative. The Jedi would have kept you locked away, studying you like a laboratory specimen until they understood your power well enough to replicate or neutralize it. At least I'm honest about what I want. Which is for you to remain here while you conduct your research, Dooku said simply. We've provided you with everything you requested, quantum scanners, dimensional analysis equipment, access to our archives on hyperspace mechanics. In return, your presence protects this facility from Republic interference. A fair exchange. Banner looked back at the assembly lines. Thousands of droids, each one a potential death. And his presence here was ensuring their production continued uninterrupted. How is this different from being a weapon? Because you aren't killing anyone, Dooku replied. You're simply existing. If the Republic chooses to respect that existence and leave this facility alone, no blood is shed. If they choose to attack despite knowing you're here, he shrugged elegantly. Then the consequences are theirs to bear. Before Banner could respond, alarms shrieked throughout the facility. Red warning lights bathed the command center in crimson. Tambor's vocabulator erupted in rapid binary code as his mechanical fingers danced across holographic controls. Republic forces, Tambor's translator unit announced. 3 Venator-class star destroyers. 2 squadrons of V-19 Torrent starfighters. They're launching assault transports, ground invasion imminent. Dooku's smile was cold satisfaction. It seems the Jedi couldn't resist the opportunity. They must have tracked your transport here. He turned to Banner. Now you'll see the true nature of those who claim to protect you. They're willing to start a battle, risking thousands of lives, droid and clone alike, just to retrieve their prize. Banner's heart rate spiked. You set me up. This was a trap from the beginning. Not a trap, a demonstration, Dooku corrected. The Republic cannot allow you to remain with the Confederacy. Your power threatens to tip the balance of this war. So they'll come for you, and they'll destroy everything in their path to get you back. Not because they care about you, Dr. Banner. Because they fear what you represent. Through the reinforced viewports, Banner could see Republic gunships descending through Geonosis's atmosphere, their hulls painted with the Republic's red and white insignia. Clone troopers would be inside, soldiers created for war, programmed for loyalty, following orders without question. And leading them would be Jedi, their lightsabers ready, convinced they were on a rescue mission. They had no idea what they were walking into. Call them off, Banner said, his voice strained. Tell them I'm here voluntarily. Tell them there doesn't need to be a fight. I've already tried, Dooku lied smoothly. General Kenobi refused to acknowledge our transmissions. He's determined to rescue you, regardless of your wishes. He placed a hand on Banner's shoulder, a gesture of false sympathy that made Banner's skin crawl. I'm afraid the decision has been made for both of us. The question now is whether you'll allow Republic forces to slaughter the workers in this facility, or whether you'll defend yourself. Defend myself? Banner's hands were shaking. You mean transform? Become the Hulk? Smash through clone troopers who are just following orders. Better than allowing them to destroy you, Dooku said quietly. Because make no mistake, Dr. Banner, if the Republic captures you, they will find a way to neutralize your power. Permanently. They cannot allow a being they cannot control to exist. The Jedi have done it before, erased threats they deemed too dangerous to contain. You'll simply be the latest in a long line of casualties in the name of galactic peace. The first explosion rocked the facility. Republic artillery had opened fire on the perimeter defenses. Battle droids streamed from assembly lines, not yet fully armed but functional enough to fight. The invasion had begun. Banner closed his eyes, forcing himself to breathe through the panic. This was exactly what he'd feared, being put in a position where transformation was the only option. Where the Hulk would emerge not as a monster, but as a necessary evil. And once that line was crossed, once he consciously chose to let the Hulk fight his battles. There is another option, a familiar voice said from behind them. Obi-Wan Kenobi stood in the command center's doorway, his lightsaber unignited but ready in his hand. Anakin Skywalker flanked him, and behind them, a full squad of clone commandos had their weapons trained on Dooku. How they'd infiltrated the facility so quickly was a mystery, but then again, Banner was learning that Jedi had ways of accomplishing the impossible. Kenobi. Dooku's voice carried genuine surprise. How fortuitous. Come to drag your prize back to his cage. We've come to give Dr. Banner what he asked for 2 days ago, Rael helped finding his way home. Obi-Wan's eyes never left Dooku, but his words were directed at Banner. The Council has granted access to the Jedi archives. Master Yoda himself has offered to work with you on understanding the dimensional breach. We should have done this immediately. We were wrong to treat you as a threat rather than a person in need. Banner's voice was hollow. And the detention cell? Was a mistake born of fear, Obi-Wan admitted. One we're prepared to rectify. But Bruce, may I call you Bruce, this facility is a death trap. Dooku brought you here specifically to trigger a confrontation. He wants you to transform, to fight Republic forces, to cement your allegiance to the Separatist cause. Don't give him what he wants. Dooku's hand moved to his lightsaber. How touching. The Jedi Master admits his order's failings while standing in my facility, surrounded by my droids, attempting to manipulate Dr. Banner just as I allegedly have. The hypocrisy is breathtaking. Anakin's blue blade ignited with a snap hiss. We're giving him a choice. That's more than you're doing. A choice. Dooku's crimson blade answered Anakin's, bathing the command center in bloody light. He had a choice until you invaded this facility. Now he'll have to watch as you slaughter workers, destroy equipment, and reduce this operation to rubble, all in the name of his rescue. Tell me, Kenobi, how many will die for your righteousness today? Another explosion, closer this time. The facility shuddered. On the holographic displays, Banner could see the battle unfolding in real time. Clone troopers advancing through corridors. Battle droids forming defensive positions. Workers, actual living beings, not droids, evacuating through emergency tunnels. And caught in the middle of it all, him. His heart rate was through the roof. His vision was starting to tinge green. The transformation was coming, inevitable as gravity, and this time he wasn't sure he wanted to stop it. Maybe the Hulk had the right answer. Maybe the only way to survive in this insane galaxy was to smash everything until the fighting stopped. Bruce, listen to me. Obi-Wan's voice was urgent but calm, using the Force to project serenity even as battle raged around them. You don't have to do this. We can get you out of here. All of us, Republic, Separatist, it doesn't matter right now. What matters is that you don't let anger make this choice for you. Anger? Banner's laugh was bitter and broken. Anger is all I have. Anger at being trapped here. Anger at both of you for treating me like a weapon instead of a person. Anger at myself for being stupid enough to think either side actually cared. His skin was shifting now, green spreading across his arms. You want to know what the Hulk thinks about all of this? Let me show you. The transformation began in earnest. Muscles expanded. Bones lengthened. His borrowed clothes started to tear. But this time, something was different. Banner was conscious during the change, aware of every moment as Bruce Banner's mind merged with the Hulk's primal rage. For the first time, they weren't separate entities fighting for control. They were choosing, together, what happened next. The Hulk stood in the command center at his full height, nearly 4 meters of emerald muscle and barely contained fury. But his eyes, usually wild and unfocused during transformation, held something different now. Intelligence. Purpose. Bruce Banner's consciousness hadn't disappeared into the rage, instead, it had merged with it, creating something neither had experienced before. The Hulk's raw power guided by Banner's brilliant mind. Everyone, stop, fighting. The words came out slowly, each syllable carefully controlled. The Hulk's massive vocal cords weren't designed for nuanced speech, but Banner was forcing them to work anyway. Now. Count Dooku's crimson blade lowered fractionally, genuine surprise crossing his aristocratic features. Anakin and Obi-Wan exchanged glances, their lightsabers still ignited but no longer in aggressive stances. The clone commandos held their positions, fingers on triggers but not firing. Fascinating, Dooku murmured. You're both of them at once. Banner and the Hulk, fully integrated. I didn't think such a thing was possible. The Hulk's fist slammed into the Durasteel floor, the impact creating a crater and sending shockwaves through the entire facility. Warning klaxons blared as structural integrity alerts flashed across Watumbor's displays. Hulk said. Stop. Throughout the facility, the fighting paused. Clone troopers looked to their commanding officers for orders. Battle droids, receiving no new instructions from the suddenly silent command center, held their positions. In the sudden quiet, only the hum of machinery and distant alarms could be heard. Obi-Wan deactivated his lightsaber, a gesture of faith that made the clone commandos visibly nervous. Bruce, we're listening. What do you want? The Hulk's massive head turned, those intelligent eyes sweeping across everyone present. When he spoke, it was with effort, but the meaning was clear. Tired of being used. Tired of being weapon. Tired of choosing sides. He pointed one enormous finger at Dooku. You want Hulk to destroy Republic. Then at Obi-Wan. You want Hulk in cage. Call it protection. Still cage. That's not, Anakin started, but the Hulk's growl silenced him. Hulk not, stupid. Banner not, stupid. Both of us, no truth. The massive form moved toward the viewports overlooking the assembly floor. Below, battle droids and clone troopers remained at standoff, neither side willing to resume combat with the Hulk looming above them. This war, not Hulk's war. Not Banner's war. You fight, over politics. Over power. Over things that don't matter. Dooku's expression shifted to calculation. If you wish to remain neutral, I can respect that. But you cannot stay on Coruscant, the Republic will never allow it. Stay here, continue your research, and I give you my word that neither I nor the Confederacy will attempt to use you. Your word means nothing. The Hulk turned back to face him. You brought Banner here, to cause this. To make Republic attack. To force, transformation. Hulk knows. Banner knows. We remember, everything now. The merged consciousness was disorienting but revelatory. Banner could feel the Hulk's perspective, the clarity of emotion uncomplicated by overthinking, the straightforward logic of strength and survival. And the Hulk could access Banner's memories, his scientific knowledge, his understanding of manipulation and deceit. Together, they saw through every lie, every half-truth, every carefully constructed manipulation both sides had deployed. Then what do you propose? Obi-Wan asked carefully. Because whether you like it or not, you're in the middle of a war zone. We need to resolve this situation before more people die. The Hulk was quiet for a long moment, Banner's analytical mind working through possibilities while the Hulk's instincts evaluated threats and opportunities. Finally, a decision emerged from their merged consciousness. Hulk leaves. Goes to, empty place. No Republic. No Separatists. No Jedi. No Sith. The massive form moved toward the command center's blast doors. Banner does, research. Finds way, home. Alone. Anyone who follows, the Hulk's fists clenched. Anyone who tries to, use Hulk, will regret it. You can't just leave, Anakin protested. This galaxy is at war, there are no empty places. And you'll need resources, equipment, support. We'll take, what Banner needs. The Hulk's voice dropped to something that was almost a purr, but infinitely more dangerous. Anyone tries to, stop Hulk, won't stop Hulk again. Dooku's red blade reignited. I'm afraid I can't allow you to simply walk away, Dr. Banner. You know too much about this facility's location and capabilities. The Confederacy's security protocols are quite clear on this matter. Then, we have problem. The Hulk's body tensed, muscles coiling with potential energy. Banner's mind calculated trajectories, force vectors, structural weak points. The Hulk's instincts prepared for violence. Dooku wants, to stop Hulk. Jedi wants, to capture Hulk. Hulk wants, to leave. The enormous shoulders rolled in something approximating a shrug. Only one of us, gets what wants. The temperature in the command center seemed to drop. Clone commandos tightened their grips on their weapons. Anakin's lightsaber came back up to defensive position. Wat Tambor's mechanical fingers flew across his controls, likely calling for droid reinforcements. Then Obi-Wan Kenobi did something unexpected. He clipped his lightsaber to his belt and stepped forward, hands raised and empty. There's a fourth option. One where everyone gets something they want, and no one has to die today. Master, Anakin's protest was immediate. Trust me, Anakin. Obi-Wan kept his eyes on the Hulk, specifically on those eyes that held Banner's intelligence. Bruce, you want to be left alone to find your way home. We want to ensure you don't become a weapon in this war. Count Dooku wants to deny the Republic access to your power. He paused. What if we formalized your neutrality? The Hulk's head tilted, curiosity evident despite his massive, intimidating form. Explain. A treaty, Obi-Wan said. Witnessed by both Republic and Confederacy. You declare yourself a neutral party, with full sovereignty over whatever territory you choose to occupy. Both sides agree to leave you alone, to provide limited support for your research, and to respect your neutrality. In exchange, you agree not to interfere in the war and not to provide military support to either faction. Dooku's laugh was sharp and bitter. And what's to stop him from breaking such an agreement the moment it suits him? Or from you Jedi simply ignoring it when convenient? The same thing that stops anyone from breaking treaties, the consequences. Obi-Wan's voice was firm. If either side violates Banner's neutrality, they risk him actively joining the other side. The Republic won't risk pushing him toward the Confederacy, and I doubt you want to drive him into Republic arms, Count. Mutually assured deterrence. The Hulk's expression, as much as his massive, brutish features could convey expression, showed consideration. Banner's tactical mind was analyzing the proposal from every angle. It wasn't perfect. Treaties could be broken. But it was better than the alternatives, and it gave him something he desperately needed, time and space to work. Where? The Hulk asked. What, territory? Obi-Wan pulled up a star chart on one of the command center's intact displays. His finger highlighted a system in the outer rim, far from major hyperspace lanes. The Quilii sector. Sparsely populated, mineral poor, of no strategic value to either side. There's an abandoned Republic research station on Dathomir's moon, isolated, defendable, and already equipped with basic scientific facilities. We could arrange for equipment and supplies to be delivered, no strings attached. Dathomir? Anakin's voice carried concern. Master, that system has a dark history. The Night Sisters, the Sith presence. Which is precisely why both sides will be motivated to leave it alone, Obi-Wan countered. No one wants to stir up that hornet's nest. Banner would be as isolated as it's possible to be in this galaxy. The Hulk looked at Dooku. You, agree to this? The Sith Lord's expression was unreadable for a long moment. Finally, he deactivated his lightsaber. On one condition. If the Republic violates this treaty, you remember who offered you freedom first. When they inevitably betray you, and they will, the Confederacy will be waiting with open arms and real support. Hulk remembers, everything now, came the rumbling response. Hulk will remember, who keeps word. And who breaks it. Dooku inclined his head. Then I agree to General Kenobi's proposal. Dr. Banner shall have his sanctuary. The Confederacy will respect his neutrality, and will be watching to ensure the Republic does the same. Anakin looked like he wanted to protest, but Obi-Wan's slight headshake silenced him. The Jedi Master turned back to the Hulk. Then we have an accord. I'll need to get Council approval, but given the alternative, he gestured at the battle-ready facility around them, I believe Master Yoda will see the wisdom in this approach. The Hulk's form began to shift, muscles compacting, height decreasing. The transformation back to Banner was faster now, more controlled. Within seconds, Bruce Banner stood where the Hulk had been, wearing the tattered remains of his clothes and breathing heavily but conscious and aware. I want that in writing, Banner said, his voice hoarse but firm. From the Jedi Council and from whatever passes for Separatist leadership. And I want it clear, anyone who comes to my sanctuary without invitation won't get a warning shot. The Hulk will defend that territory with everything he has. Understood, Obi-Wan said quietly. And Bruce? For what it's worth, I am sorry. We should have offered you this from the beginning. Banner pulled the remnants of his shirt around himself. You should have. But at least you're offering it now. That's more than most people have done. He looked at Dooku. And you, don't think for a second I trust you. The moment you try to use me, treaty or no treaty, the Hulk will make sure you regret it. Dooku's smile was cold amusement. I would expect nothing less, Dr. Banner. In fact, I'd be disappointed if you were so easily manipulated. A being of your power should have standards. Throughout the facility, clone troopers and battle droids began withdrawing by unspoken agreement. The crisis was over, at least for now. A new equilibrium had been established, fragile, temporary, but real. Bruce Banner had found his sanctuary. Now he just had to hope it would be enough time to find his way home before this galaxy tore itself apart and took him with it. The abandoned research station on Dathomir's moon had been built during the Old Republic's expansion era, back when scientific exploration was considered a worthy investment. That was 3 centuries ago. Now, the facility was a testament to entropy, walls streaked with rust, viewports cracked from micrometeorite impacts, and life support systems that coughed and wheezed like a dying thing. But it had bones. Good bones. Reinforced durasteel walls, independent power generation, and enough space for a laboratory that could, with work, rival anything the Republic or Separatists possessed. Bruce Banner stood in what had once been the main research bay, surrounded by crates of equipment that both sides had grudgingly delivered. True to the treaty, the Republic had provided quantum scanners, dimensional analysis equipment, and a portable fusion reactor. The Separatists had contributed advanced computational systems, hyperspace field generators, and, in what Banner suspected was Dooku's idea of irony, a collection of Sith holocrons containing ancient knowledge of force-based dimensional manipulation. He'd been here for 3 weeks. 3 weeks of solitude interrupted only by supply drones and the occasional long-range communication from Obi-Wan, checking that the treaty was holding. It was the longest Banner had gone without transforming since the accident that created the Hulk. The isolation helped. No people to disappoint. No threats to react to. Just work, research, and the slow process of understanding this galaxy's fundamental physics. Okay, let's try this again, Banner muttered to himself, adjusting the quantum scanner's settings. He'd jury-rigged it to detect the dimensional frequencies that had brought him here, a task made more complicated by the fact that this galaxy's physics operated on subtly different rules than his own universe. If the Force is a universal field connecting all matter, and gamma radiation operates outside that field's influence, then the intersection point should create a detectable signature. The scanner whined, its display showing a cascade of impossible readings. Banner frowned, making adjustments. The problem was that he was trying to detect something from outside this reality while using equipment designed for this reality's rules. It was like trying to use a thermometer to measure sound, the instrument simply wasn't built for the task. You require a force-sensitive perspective. Banner spun, his heart rate spiking instantly. A figure stood in the laboratory's entrance, a young woman with blue skin and red eyes, wearing the simple robes of a Jedi Padawan. Her presence hadn't triggered any alarms, hadn't registered on any sensors. She'd simply appeared, as if the universe had decided she belonged there. "Easy," she said, raising her hands. "I'm Padawan Ahsoka Tano. Master Yoda sent me. He thought you might need someone who understands both the Force and scientific inquiry." She gestured to the equipment around them. "Though I have to admit, most of this is beyond my expertise. I'm better with lightsabers than quantum physics." Banner's breathing was controlled, measured. The old techniques keeping his heart rate from spiraling. The treaty said no visitors without invitation. "Which is why I asked your computer system for permission before entering," Ahsoka replied, pointing to a console where, sure enough, a blinking message requested approval for entry. "You didn't respond for 6 hours, so I figured you were either too busy to notice or unconscious." "Since you're clearly busy," she smiled. "I'm going with option 1. Despite himself, Banner felt the tension ease slightly. "Yoda sent you." "Why?" "Because you're trying to solve a problem that exists at the intersection of science and the Force." Ahsoka moved into the laboratory, her eyes scanning the equipment with genuine curiosity. "And that requires understanding both languages. You've got the science covered, 7 PhDs, right? Impressive. But you're missing the other half of the equation." Banner turned back to his scanner, but his posture was less defensive. I don't have midichlorians. The Force doesn't affect me the way it affects you people. No, but you affect the Force, Ahsoka countered. She closed her eyes, reaching out through her Force senses. There's a void around you, like a bubble where the Force can't penetrate. But that void has edges, and at those edges, there's interference. Ripples. She opened her eyes, excitement evident. You're not outside the Force. You're creating resistance against it. Like oil and water, they don't mix, but they interact at the boundary. Banner's scientific mind immediately engaged. Interference patterns. If I could map those ripples, I could track them back to the dimensional breach point. He pulled up holographic displays, overlaying his quantum readings with hypothetical force field interactions. But I'd need someone who could sense those ripples in real time while I took measurements. Which is exactly why Master Yoda sent me, Ahsoka said with satisfaction. Well, that and he was worried you'd go space crazy out here with no one to talk to. Meditation and isolation are great for Jedi, but you're not a Jedi. No, I'm just a guy with an anger management problem and a monster living in his skin. Banner's voice was bitter. Ahsoka was quiet for a moment, then, can I ask you something? The Hulk, when you transformed at the Geonosis facility, the reports said you were different. Still the Hulk, but also still you. What changed? Banner's hand stilled on the console. I stopped fighting him. For years, I treated the Hulk like a disease, something to be cured or contained. But in that command center, with everyone trying to use me, I realized something. The Hulk isn't separate from me. He's not a monster that possessed me. He's me without the fear, without the inhibitions, without the lifetime of being told to be calm and reasonable and controlled. He looked at his hands. We merged because I finally accepted that maybe anger isn't always the enemy. Sometimes it's the only honest response to an impossible situation. That sounds, Ahsoka searched for the right word. Healthy, actually. The Jedi teach that emotion leads to the dark side, but I've never really bought that completely. Anakin's the best person I know, and he feels everything intensely. Sometimes I think our teachings are too rigid. Before Banner could respond, proximity alarms shrieked throughout the facility. His displays lit up with sensor contacts, multiple ships dropping out of hyperspace. Not Republic. Not Separatist. The signatures were wrong, chaotic, unregulated. Pirates, Ahsoka breathed, her hand moving to her lightsaber. A whole fleet of them. Banner pulled up tactical displays. 12 ships, ranging from converted freighters to actual combat vessels. All heavily armed. All converging on the research station. Why would pirates attack a neutral facility in the middle of nowhere? His communication console crackled to life, answering his question. Attention, whatever's down there. This is Captain Voss of the Crimson Dawn. We've been hired to retrieve a certain green giant for a client who's willing to pay a lot of credits for your capture. Now, you can come quietly and save us all some trouble, or you can make this difficult. Either way, you're coming with us. Banner's heart rate spiked. Someone put a bounty on me. Both sides promised neutrality, Ahsoka said, her young face hardening with anger. One of them just broke the treaty. Or both of them did, Banner said grimly. He pulled up the research station's defensive systems, shield generators that were barely functional, point defense turrets that hadn't been maintained in decades, blast doors that might hold for a few minutes at best. This facility wasn't designed to withstand a siege. The first weapon's fire struck the station's shields, overloading them instantly. The ancient generators sparked and died, leaving them completely exposed. Ahsoka's comlink chirped, she'd sent a distress signal, but the nearest Republic forces were hours away at best. We need to hold until help arrives, she said, igniting her green lightsaber. I'll defend the main entrance. Can you? No, Banner's voice was firm. If I transform, I'll tear this place apart along with the pirates. All my research, all the equipment, everything I need to get home will be destroyed. His mind raced through options, each one worse than the last. There has to be another way. There isn't. Ahsoka was already moving toward the entrance. Sometimes you have to fight, Bruce. Sometimes there's no peaceful solution. The blast doors groaned as breaching charges detonated on the other side. Smoke poured through the cracks. Voices shouted in a dozen different languages, the excited chatter of bounty hunters about to claim a massive prize. Banner's hands clenched into fists. His skin started to tinge green. I can't. If the Hulk comes out, he'll smash everything. The research, the station, any chance I have of getting home. Then don't let him smash everything, Ahsoka called back, her lightsaber ready. You said you merged with him at Geonosis. You were both in control. Do that again. That was desperation. I don't know how I did it. The blast doors exploded inward. Pirates poured through, Weequay, Nikto, humans, and species Banner didn't recognize. All armed. All focused on him. At the front, a massive Hawk raised a stun net launcher, designed to capture prey alive. Bruce Banner felt his consciousness slipping, the transformation inevitable. But this time, as the Hulk began to emerge, Banner didn't fight it. He embraced it. Merged with it. Let his brilliant mind guide the rage instead of being overwhelmed by it. The Hulk that emerged was different from before. Smaller, only 2.5 meters tall instead of his usual massive size. More controlled. His movements were precise instead of wild. When he spoke, the words were clearer, more articulate. Hulk has, new rule, the merged being said, his voice a perfect blend of Banner's intelligence and the Hulk's power. Anyone who breaks Banner's sanctuary, answers to Hulk. Then he moved, and the pirates learned why attacking Bruce Banner was the last mistake they'd ever make. The Hulk's fist caught the Hawk bounty hunter in the center of his chest with surgical precision, enough force to shatter ribs and send him flying backward through 3 of his companions, but not enough to kill. Banner's consciousness was in full control, calculating every strike, every movement, ensuring maximum incapacitation with minimum lethality. The merged being was a weapon of extraordinary restraint, something neither Banner nor the Hulk had achieved separately. A Weequay fired a blaster rifle at point-blank range. The Hulk's hand blurred, catching the bolt in his palm. It dissipated against his gamma-irradiated skin with a hiss of energy. His other hand shot forward, grabbed the rifle's barrel, and crushed it into a twisted sculpture of useless metal. A headbutt, carefully controlled, sent the Weequay sprawling unconscious. Hulk said, "No killing," the merged being growled. Banner said, "Defend home. Both of us, agree on this." Ahsoka moved through the chaos like water, her lightsaber deflecting blaster bolts and disarming opponents with the precision of Jedi training. She'd seen combat before, the Clone Wars had made soldiers of them all, even the young, but she'd never seen anything like the Hulk in action when guided by intelligence. He wasn't just strong, he was efficient. Every movement served a purpose. Every strike was measured. A Nikto threw a thermal detonator. The Hulk's massive hand snatched it from the air, his fingers closing around the explosive. The detonator went off with a muffled thump inside his fist. When he opened his hand, his palm was scorched but already healing, the thermal burn fading as his gamma-enhanced cellular structure repaired itself in real time. "Hulk's turn," he said, and threw the Nikto through a transparisteel viewport. The pirate sailed out into Dathomir's moon's thin atmosphere, his environmental suit automatically sealing as he tumbled into the low gravity. He'd survive, bruised, terrified, but alive. More pirates poured through the breached entrance. Captain Voss himself appeared, a kiffer with traditional facial tattoos and 2 DL-44 heavy blaster pistols. His yellow eyes assessed the situation with professional calm, noting how his mercenaries were being systematically dismantled by the Green Giant and the Padawan. "Stun weapons only," Voss shouted. "The client wants him alive and intact, triple pay for successful capture." Stun nets launched from a dozen weapons. The Hulk's response was to leap, not his usual bound that would carry him hundreds of meters, but a controlled jump that landed him in the center of the pirate formation. The impact alone knocked half of them off their feet. His hands became blurs, tearing stun nets apart before they could entangle him, grabbing weapons and crushing them, clearing a circle of unconscious or groaning attackers. "You're working, for who?" the Hulk demanded, grabbing Captain Voss by his armored chest plate and lifting him off the ground. "Who hired you?" Voss spat blood. "Anonymous client. Paid through Shadow Collective channels. Half now, half on delivery." His hand moved toward a holdout blaster, but the Hulk's grip tightened, crumpling the armor and making further movement impossible. "Shadow Collective," Ahsoka said from where she stood over three unconscious Weequay. "That's Maul's organization. Crime syndicates, mercenaries, anyone with credits and no morals." The Hulk's eyes narrowed, Banner's analytical mind processing the information. Maul. The Zabrak Sith. Dooku's rival. His grip loosened slightly on Voss. "Not Republic. Not Separatists. Someone else, breaking treaty. Does it matter?" Voss wheezed. "The contract's out there. Every bounty hunter and mercenary in 3 sectors knows about it. 5 million credits for the Hulk, alive. You'll never have peace, they'll just keep coming." The Hulk dropped him. The captain collapsed, gasping. Then Hulk sends, message. To all bounty hunters. To everyone, who thinks Banner is, target. He moved to the center of the wrecked laboratory, surrounded by groaning pirates and sparking equipment. His massive form stood at full height and he roared, not the mindless bellow of rage, but a calculated declaration of territorial dominance that echoed through the facility and transmitted through every active comm channel the pirates had left open. Hulk is not weapon. Hulk is not prize. Anyone who comes to Banner's home gets smashed. Tell everyone. Tell whole galaxy. Hulk protects what is his. The roar registered on seismic sensors across Dathomir's moon. In orbit, the remaining pirate ships received the transmission, heard the fury and conviction in that inhuman voice, and began calculating whether 5 million credits was worth facing what they'd just heard. Several ships immediately jumped to hyperspace. Others hesitated, still weighing greed against survival. Then Republic forces arrived. 3 Venator-class star destroyers dropped out of hyperspace, their weapons hot and shields raised. The lead ship opened communications immediately. "All unidentified vessels, this is the Republic Star Destroyer Resolute. You are in violation of Treaty Designation Banner 1. Withdraw immediately or be fired upon." The pirate fleet scattered. Hyperspace engines engaged across the board as mercenaries decided that Republic intervention combined with an angry Hulk made the contract impossible to fulfill. Within minutes, the only ships remaining in orbit were Republic vessels. Anakin Skywalker's face appeared on Banner's barely functional communication console. "Bruce, are you alright? We picked up the distress signal and came as fast as we could." The Hulk was already shrinking, the adrenaline fading as the immediate threat passed. Banner's consciousness separated from the merged state, and within seconds, he stood among the wreckage in his torn clothes, breathing heavily but conscious and in control. "I'm fine," Banner said hoarsely. "Ahsoka is fine. But someone put a bounty on me. 5 million credits. Every hunter in this sector is going to come looking." Maul, Obi-Wan's voice joined the transmission as his hologram flickered to life beside Anakin's. "We've been tracking Shadow Collective movements. He's been trying to destabilize both Republic and Separatist operations by creating chaos. What better way than to violate your treaty and start a bidding war for your capture?" Banner looked around at the destroyed laboratory, weeks of work damaged, equipment shattered, the pirates groaning as they regained consciousness. "The treaty's broken. It was supposed to protect me, keep me neutral. Now I'm just a target with a price on my head. The treaty isn't broken, Obi-Wan said firmly. Neither the Republic nor the Confederacy hired these mercenaries. Maul operated outside both power structures, that's what makes him so dangerous. The treaty still holds. But the damage is done, Ahsoka said quietly. She'd been helping restrain the pirates, but now she stood beside Banner. Every criminal organization knows there's a bounty. They'll keep coming, treaty or no treaty. Banner's hands clenched. Then I need to make it clear that the price isn't worth it. That coming after me is suicide. He looked at Obi-Wan's hologram. I need to send a message that every bounty hunter, every mercenary, every criminal in this galaxy understands. And how do you propose to do that? Obi-Wan asked carefully. Banner's expression hardened. By going after Maul myself. By showing everyone what happens when someone makes Bruce Banner a target. The Hulk has been reactive for too long, defending, running, hiding. Maybe it's time to go on the offense. Absolutely not, Anakin said immediately. Maul is one of the most dangerous beings in the galaxy. Even with your power, confronting him directly is exactly what needs to happen, Banner interrupted. You don't understand. In my universe, I spent years running from people who wanted to use me. It never stopped. They just kept coming, kept hunting, until I finally stood my ground and made it clear that the cost of pursuing me was too high. He straightened, despite his exhaustion. Maul violated my sanctuary. He put a price on my head. If I don't respond, everyone will think I'm vulnerable. Fair game. Obi-Wan stroked his beard thoughtfully. There is logic to that. Maul respects strength and dominance. If you confronted him on Mandalore, his current base of operations, and defeated him publicly, the message would resonate throughout the underworld. Master, you can't be serious, Ahsoka protested. Sending Bruce into Maul's territory is. I didn't say send him alone, Obi-Wan replied. But Ahsoka, consider the reality. As long as that bounty stands, Banner will never have peace. Every criminal, every desperate mercenary will see him as a payday. The only way to eliminate that threat is to eliminate its source. Banner looked down at his hands, the same hands that had just torn through a dozen armed bounty hunters without killing a single one. The same hands that, as the Hulk, had demonstrated perfect control and precision. I can do this. Banner and the Hulk together, we're not just strong anymore. We're smart and strong. And Maul needs to learn that some people don't get hunted. Some people hunt back. The transmission fell silent as everyone processed the implications. Bruce Banner, the man who'd spent his entire post-accident life avoiding confrontation, was proposing to take the fight directly to one of the galaxy's most feared Sith Lords. Not out of aggression, but out of necessity. Not because he wanted to fight, but because he was done running. Then we'd better make sure you're prepared, Obi-Wan said finally. Because if you're going to face Maul, you'll need to understand what you're up against. The Sith don't fight like your typical opponent. They use fear, rage, and the dark side of the Force as weapons. And Maul, he paused. Maul is fueled by pure hatred. He survived being cut in half through sheer will and desire for revenge. He won't stop until you're dead or he is. Banner's jaw set with determination. Then I guess we're about to find out what happens when an unstoppable force of rage meets an immovable object of anger. Because the Hulk doesn't lose. Not when Banner and the Hulk are fighting for the same thing. In the shadows of the transmission, neither Jedi saw the faint smile on Banner's face. For the first time since arriving in this galaxy, he wasn't afraid of the Hulk. He wasn't fighting his other half. They were finally, truly, one. And together, they were going hunting. Mandalore's capital city of Sundari gleamed like a jewel beneath its protective dome, white towers and crystalline architecture that spoke of a civilization trying desperately to distance itself from its warrior past. But beneath that pacifist veneer, in the shadows of the city's lower levels, Darth Maul had built his throne. The former Sith apprentice, resurrected through hatred and cybernetic augmentation, ruled the Shadow Collective from a fortress that had once been a Death Watch stronghold. Here, surrounded by criminal lieutenants and Mandalorian warriors loyal to his vision, Maul waited for the galaxy to bend to his will. He did not expect the galaxy to come crashing through his front door. The fortress's outer wall exploded inward, not from artillery or missiles, but from a single massive impact. Dust and debris cleared to reveal a figure standing in the breach, backlit by Mandalore's artificial lighting. The Hulk had arrived, and he'd done so with characteristic subtlety, none whatsoever. Maul. The Hulk's voice echoed through the fortress corridors. Hulk is here, for you. Alarms shrieked. Mandalorian warriors in their distinctive armor rushed toward the breach, blasters raised. The Hulk didn't wait for them to fire. He moved with the merged consciousness that Banner's intellect provided, each step calculated, each movement purposeful. His fist caught the first warrior's chest plate, not hard enough to kill, but sufficient to crumple Beskar armor and send the Mandalorian flying backward into his companions. A whistling bird missile volley streaked toward the Hulk from a warrior's gauntlet. The Emerald Giant's hand swept through the air, batting aside the micro-rockets like insects. They detonated against the walls, filling the corridor with smoke and fire that the Hulk walked through without slowing. Banner counted, the Hulk said as he advanced through the fortress, his voice eerily calm despite the chaos. 13 attacks, on Banner's sanctuary. 13 bounty hunters, who came because of Maul's contract. His massive fist punched through a blast door like it was paper. Hulk counted every single one. In his throne room 3 levels down, Maul felt the disturbance rippling through the fortress. His yellow eyes widened fractionally, the only sign of surprise his disciplined Sith training allowed. The Hulk, he hissed, rising from his throne. He dares come here. To my fortress. Savage Appress, Maul's massive Zabrak brother, stepped forward with his double-bladed lightsaber igniting. Let me crush him, brother. This beast is no match for. No, Maul's voice cracked like a whip. This creature defeated an entire pirate fleet and walked through a dozen Jedi Knights without serious injury. Brute force alone will not suffice. His red and black tattooed face twisted into a calculating smile. But the dark side offers other methods. The Hulk descended through the fortress levels like a green avalanche. Blast doors sealed and he tore them open. Defense turrets activated and he ripped them from their moorings. Shadow Collective enforcers, criminals from a dozen species, tried to stop him with everything from vibroaxes to thermal detonators. Nothing worked. The Hulk was methodical, brutal, and completely unstoppable. But he wasn't alone. Above the fortress, Republic gunships descended through Sundari's dome, a violation of Mandalorian neutrality that would have diplomatic consequences later, but which Duchess Satine had reluctantly authorized after learning that Maul had violated the Banner Treaty. Obi-Wan Kenobi, Anakin Skywalker, and Ahsoka Tano led a strike team of clone troopers into the fortress through breaches the Hulk had conveniently created. He's tearing this place apart, Anakin observed as they navigated a corridor where the walls bore Hulk-sized holes. I'm starting to think we're not needed. We're not here to fight for him, Obi-Wan replied, his lightsaber deflecting blaster fire from Shadow Collective troops. We're here to make sure he doesn't have to kill anyone. Bruce wants justice, not massacre. They found the Hulk 2 levels above the throne room, surrounded by unconscious or groaning Mandalorians and criminals. The Green Giant stood perfectly still, his chest heaving with controlled breaths. When he saw the Jedi, his expression, as much as the Hulk's brutish features could convey, showed recognition. Jedi came, the Hulk said. Good. Hulk doesn't want to kill Maul. Banner doesn't want to be murderer. His massive hands clenched. But Hulk will stop him. Permanently. We understand, Obi-Wan said carefully. Maul is below. But Bruce, he's not like the opponents you've faced before. The dark side gives him abilities that. The Hulk's laugh was harsh and mirthless. Hulk fought gods. Hulk fought monsters. Hulk fought himself. He tapped his temple with one enormous finger. Banner and Hulk, both here now. Both agree. Maul needs to learn what happens when you hunt. Hulk. He dropped through the floor, his mass simply crashing through multiple levels of reinforced durasteel until he landed in Maul's throne room with an impact that cracked the floor and sent shockwaves through the entire structure. Darth Maul stood at the far end of the chamber, his double-bladed crimson lightsaber ignited and spinning in a defensive pattern. Savage Opress flanked him, his own weapon ready. Between them and the Hulk stood 24 Shadow Collective elites, the most dangerous killers Maul could assemble on short notice. So, Maul said, his voice a serpentine hiss, the beast comes to me. How disappointing. I expected more subtlety from someone with a scientific mind. Or has the monster completely consumed Bruce Banner? The Hulk straightened to his full height, nearly 3 meters of emerald muscle and barely contained power. But his eyes, burning with intelligence and purpose, were pure Banner. Banner is here, he said clearly, the words measured and precise. Hulk is here. Both of us came to tell you something. And what is that? Maul's lightsaber continued its defensive pattern, his body coiled like a spring. You made mistake. The Hulk's fists clenched. You put price on Banner's head. You made Hulk into target. You broke Banner's sanctuary. His voice dropped to something that was almost conversational, which made it infinitely more terrifying. Now Hulk breaks your sanctuary. Fair trade. Maul's response was to unleash the full power of the dark side. Force lightning erupted from his hands, crackling bolts of purple-white energy that could kill a normal being in seconds. The Hulk crossed his massive arms in front of his face, and the lightning washed over him. His gamma-irradiated cellular structure absorbed the energy, his skin smoking and scorching, but holding. Healing even as it burned. Impossible, Maul breathed. Nothing withstands. The Hulk moved. 3 massive strides closed the distance between them, faster than Maul's Sith-enhanced reflexes could fully process. His fist swung toward Maul's head, and only the Zobrik's force-enhanced speed allowed him to duck underneath the blow. The Hulk's fist continued past, struck a support pillar, and shattered it completely. The ceiling groaned ominously. Savage Opress attacked from the side, his lightsaber aimed at the Hulk's torso. The blade connected, and the Hulk's skin resisted. The lightsaber's plasma edge, capable of cutting through durasteel like butter, pressed against gamma-enhanced flesh and couldn't penetrate. For 3 seconds, Savage strained, pouring all his strength into the blade. For 3 seconds, the Hulk simply stood there, allowing him to try. Then the Hulk grabbed Savage's lightsaber by the blade itself. His hand sizzled and burned, the smell of cooking flesh filling the air. But he didn't let go. Instead, he squeezed. The lightsaber's emitter began to crack under the pressure. Impossible, lightsabers were designed to withstand incredible forces. But the Hulk's strength was, quite literally, limitless when properly motivated. The lightsaber exploded in a shower of sparks and components. Savage staggered backward, weaponless and shocked. The Hulk's hand was scorched black, the flesh charred and smoking. Then, as everyone watched, the hand began to heal. Green tissue knitting back together, burns fading, until within seconds his hand was completely restored. Hulk's turn, he said, and backhanded Savage Opress across the throne room. The massive Zobrik crashed through a wall and didn't get back up. Maul's yellow eyes widened with something he rarely felt, genuine fear. You're not just strong, he whispered, his tactical mind reassessing everything. You're adapting. Learning. Every attack makes you stronger. Banner's mind, the Hulk confirmed. Hulk's power. Together, unstoppable. The Shadow Collective elites attacked as one, a coordinated assault meant to overwhelm through sheer numbers. The Hulk became a whirlwind of controlled destruction. A Pike Syndicate enforcer with a shock baton found his weapon crushed to fragments. A Zygerian slaver with an electro-whip discovered that the Hulk could simply tear the whip from his hands and use it to tie him up. A Black Sun operative with thermal detonators watched in horror as the Hulk threw them back, forcing the criminal to flee his own explosives. Through it all, Maul circled, looking for an opening. His lightsaber flickered and danced, seeking any vulnerability in the Hulk's defenses. But Banner's intellect guided every movement, anticipating attacks before they came, positioning the Hulk to minimize exposure to the lightsaber's edge. "You cannot win," Maul said, his voice carrying the full weight of dark side manipulation. "You are alone in a galaxy that fears you. Isolated. Hunted. Join me, and I can give you what you truly want, power respected, strength acknowledged. Together we could." "Hulk already has, what Hulk wants," the Green Giant interrupted. "Has Banner. Banner has Hulk. Don't need. Sith promises. Don't need. Dark side lies." He lunged forward, and this time Maul wasn't fast enough. The Hulk's hand closed around the Sith Lord's mechanical lower body, the cybernetic replacement for the legs Obi-Wan had severed years ago. The Hulk lifted Maul off the ground, holding him at arm's length like a parent holding a misbehaving child. "Hulk came here, to send message," the Hulk said quietly. "Message to all bounty hunters. All criminals. All who think Banner is target." His grip tightened, and Maul's cybernetics began to creak under the pressure. "Banner's sanctuary is OFF limits. Anyone who violates, answers to Hulk. Understand?" Maul's response was to drive his lightsaber directly into the Hulk's shoulder. The blade sank in, 3 centimeters, maybe 4. Nowhere near deep enough to be fatal, but enough to cause pain. The Hulk's roar shook the entire fortress. Then he simply pulled the lightsaber out of his shoulder, the wound already beginning to heal, and snapped it in half with his bare hands. "Wrong answer," the Hulk said. He slammed Maul into the floor with enough force to create a crater. Once. Twice. 3 times. On the 4th impact, Maul's concentration broke, his dark side defenses shattered, and he went limp. Not dead, the Hulk had calculated every strike to ensure that, but thoroughly, completely defeated. The Hulk dropped Maul's unconscious form and looked around the throne room. Shadow Collective enforcers were scattered like broken dolls. Savage Oppress was still embedded in the wall. The ceiling was cracked and groaning. And in the doorway, Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Ahsoka stood with their mouths open. "Hulk didn't kill anyone," the Hulk said with something approaching pride. "Banner kept promise." Then the transformation began. The green faded. The muscles compacted. Within seconds, Bruce Banner stood in the crater, naked and exhausted but conscious and in control. 5 million credits, Banner said hoarsely. "That's what my life was worth to him. I think I just made it clear that the price is too high." Obi-Wan nodded slowly. "I think the entire criminal underworld just received that message very clearly indeed." 6 months had passed since the Battle of Mandalore, as the Holonews networks had dubbed it, though battle seemed too generous a term for what had been a one-sided demonstration of overwhelming force. The footage had spread across every cantina, every shadowport, every criminal den in the galaxy. Darth Maul, one of the most feared beings in the underworld, systematically dismantled by a green giant who'd walked through dark side lightning, crushed a lightsaber with his bare hands, and then simply transformed back into an exhausted scientist. The bounties had stopped after that. All of them. Not just Maul's contract, but every opportunistic hunter who'd considered Bruce Banner an easy payday. Word traveled fast in criminal circles, and the word was clear: the Hulk was not prey. He was an apex predator, and his territory was sacrosanct. Bruce Banner sat in his restored laboratory on Dathomir's moon, surrounded by equipment that had been meticulously repaired and upgraded over the intervening months. Both Republic and Separatist forces had honored the treaty, delivering supplies and leaving him in peace. The research station had become something more than just a sanctuary, it had become a symbol. Proof that in a galaxy torn apart by war, neutrality was still possible if you were strong enough to enforce it. The dimensional frequency modulator is operating at 93% efficiency, Banner muttered to himself, adjusting crystalline arrays that combined Republic quantum technology with Separatist computational systems. On the workbench beside him, a Sith holocron glowed softly. He'd learned to extract its knowledge of force-based dimensional manipulation without succumbing to its dark side whispers. If I can boost that to 98%, create a stable resonance pattern that matches my entry signature. The laboratory door hissed open. Banner didn't look up, he'd learned to recognize Ahsoka's force presence, the bright spark of light side energy that announced her arrival better than any sensor. Still at it? She asked, moving to examine his work. Over the months, she'd become a regular visitor, ostensibly to help with the Force science integration, but really, Banner suspected, because Master Yoda worried about him isolating himself completely. Master Skywalker says the Council is impressed with your progress. They never expected you to actually solve dimensional transit equations. 7 PhDs, Banner replied with a faint smile. They're good for something. He activated a holographic projection showing a swirling vortex of energy, his theoretical model of a stable dimensional gateway. The problem isn't creating a breach. That's relatively simple if you don't care about controlling where or when you emerge. The problem is navigating through the space between universes without being torn apart by the quantum foam that separates realities. Which is where the Force comes in, Ahsoka said, understanding dawning. You need something to guide you through, a consciousness that can perceive across dimensional boundaries. Exactly. Banner looked at her with genuine respect. You've gotten better at this. When you first arrived, you thought I was just playing with fancy equipment. When I first arrived, you were barely functional from isolation and stress, Ahsoka countered. Now you're different. Calmer. More integrated. Banner's expression grew thoughtful. The Hulk and I have reached an understanding. We're not fighting for dominance anymore. We're collaborating. When I need his strength, he's there. When he needs my intellect, I'm there. It's like, he searched for the right words. It's like we finally accepted that we're two parts of the same person, and that person is stronger when we work together than when we fight. The Jedi could learn from that, Ahsoka said quietly. We're taught to suppress emotion, to avoid attachment, to maintain perfect control. But watching you and the Hulk, maybe emotion and reason aren't opposites. Maybe they're supposed to work together. Before Banner could respond, his proximity sensors chimed. A ship was approaching, one he didn't recognize. Not Republic. Not Separatist. The signature was, strange. Familiar, somehow, but impossible to place. The holographic communication terminal activated without his input. A figure materialized, tall, imposing, wearing armor that seemed to drink in light rather than reflect it. Where a face should have been, there was only a featureless helmet that somehow conveyed an impression of ancient intelligence. Dr. Bruce Banner, the figure said, its voice resonant and layered as if multiple beings spoke in unison. We represent the Celestials, beings who have watched this galaxy since before the Republic's founding. We have observed your arrival, your struggle, and your growth with great interest. Banner's hand moved subtly toward the emergency transformation trigger he'd installed, a device that could artificially spike his adrenaline and bring out the Hulk in seconds if needed. Who are you really? What do you want? We are custodians of dimensional boundaries, the figure replied. Your presence here created a wound in the fabric that separates your universe from this one. A wound that, if left unrepaired, could cascade into something catastrophic. We are here to offer you a choice. The hologram shifted, showing a swirling portal of energy, similar to Banner's theoretical model but far more sophisticated, stable, and terrifying in its complexity. We can send you home, Dr. Banner. Not to the moment you left, but to a point where your absence will have been noticed but not yet created irreversible consequences. You will return to your universe, your research, your life. The Hulk will remain as he is, and your merger with him will persist. Banner's heart rate climbed. Home. Everything he'd been working toward, everything he'd sacrificed for. What's the catch? The portal will seal behind you permanently, the figure said. You will never be able to return to this galaxy. And the dimensional scar your arrival created will remain, a weak point that future travelers might exploit, intentionally or otherwise. Your departure will not erase the impact you've had here. Ahsoka stepped forward. You're saying he can go home, but at the cost of leaving a dangerous vulnerability? Yes. Alternatively. The hologram shifted again, showing Banner's research station surrounded by a shimmering field of energy. Dr. Banner can remain here. His presence, specifically the unique interaction between gamma radiation and the Force, can stabilize the dimensional scar. He becomes, essentially, a living seal preventing further breaches. In exchange, we provide him with knowledge that will allow him to fully control his transformations, to access the Hulk's power without losing himself to rage. Banner's mind raced through the implications. Go home and leave this galaxy vulnerable to dimensional invasions? Or stay here, in a war-torn galaxy that wasn't his own, becoming a permanent guardian against threats that might never materialize? How long? He asked quietly. If I stay, how long would I need to maintain the seal? Until the galaxy reaches a state of balance, the figure replied. When the current conflict resolves and the Force itself stabilizes, the seal will become self-sustaining. Conservative estimate, 5 to 7 standard years. 5 to 7 years, Banner repeated. He looked at Ahsoka, seeing the conflict in her young face, wanting him to stay because they'd become friends, but wanting him to be free because she understood what it meant to be trapped by duty. In my universe, I have friends. People who depend on me. The Avengers, heroes who fight threats I'm uniquely qualified to handle. And here, the celestial figure said, you have become something unprecedented. A being who bridges science and mysticism, who proves that emotion and reason can coexist. Your presence has already influenced Jedi philosophy. Master Yoda has begun questioning the Order's rigid emotional suppression. Your defeat of Maul without killing him has inspired discussions about the nature of justice and restraint. You have become, whether you intended to or not, a catalyst for change. Banner walked to the viewport overlooking Dathomir's moon's barren surface. 6 months ago, he would have chosen to go home without hesitation. 6 months ago, he was still fighting the Hulk, still treating his condition as a curse to be managed rather than a gift to be understood. But now he was different. The merger with the Hulk wasn't just about power. It was about acceptance. About finally making peace with every part of himself, including the parts he'd spent years hating and fearing. If I stay, Banner said slowly, I want full access to both Republic and Separatist scientific databases. I want protection for this station formalized in writing by both sides. And I want regular contact with the outside galaxy. I'm not going to be a hermit for 7 years. Those terms are acceptable, the celestial figure said. Though we should note, the war between Republic and Confederacy is approaching its conclusion. Events are in motion that will reshape this galaxy fundamentally. Your presence as a neutral party may prove more important than you realize. Banner turned back to face the hologram. His decision was made, though a part of him couldn't quite believe what he was about to say. Then I'll stay. Not because I have to, but because, he paused, searching for the right words. Because for the first time since I became the Hulk, I feel like I'm somewhere I can actually make a difference. In my universe, I was always the backup plan, the contingency when everything else failed. Here, I'm proving that strength and compassion aren't mutually exclusive. That power doesn't have to corrupt. That the monster everyone fears can choose to be a hero. Ahsoka's smile was brilliant with relief and joy. Master Yoda is going to be insufferable about this. He predicted you'd stay. Of course he did, Banner said with a laugh. He's 900 years old and reads the future through mystical energy fields. I'm just a guy with anger issues and 7 PhDs. The celestial figure inclined its head. Your decision is recorded, Dr. Banner. The dimensional seal will integrate with your life force over the next lunar cycle. You will feel no different, but your presence will stabilize the barrier between universes. When your time here is complete, we will return to offer you passage home, if you still desire it. The hologram faded, leaving Banner and Ahsoka alone in the laboratory. Outside, Mandalore's sun was setting, painting the barren landscape in shades of amber and gold. In orbit, both Republic and Separatist monitoring stations maintained their watchful positions, ensuring the treaty held. So, Ahsoka said after a long moment. 7 years. What are you going to do with all that time? Banner looked at his research, at the equipment that represented months of work and theoretical breakthroughs that would have taken decades back home. Then he looked at his hands, the same hands that had destroyed armies, torn through starships, and held a Sith Lord accountable for his crimes. I'm going to keep working, he said. Keep researching. Keep proving that Bruce Banner and the Hulk can be more than what everyone expects. He smiled, and for the first time in longer than he could remember, it was a smile of genuine contentment. And when this war ends, when this galaxy finally finds peace, I'm going to write the most impressive doctoral dissertation on interdimensional physics that either universe has ever seen. Only you would think about academic papers at a time like this, Ahsoka laughed. I have 7 PhDs, Banner replied with mock seriousness. It's an addiction. I can't stop learning, even when I'm trapped in another dimension. They stood together at the viewport, watching the stars emerge as darkness fell. Somewhere out there, the Clone Wars raged on. Jedi and Sith maneuvered for advantage. The Republic and Confederacy ground each other down in battles that would echo through history. That power and compassion could coexist. When Order 66 fell and the Jedi Order was destroyed, Banner's sanctuary became a refuge for survivors. When the Empire rose and tyranny spread across the galaxy, his neutral territory became a symbol of resistance through simple existence. And when the war finally ended and the Force began to find balance, Bruce Banner kept his promise. He stayed. He protected. He proved that sometimes the strongest choice is choosing not to fight at all. And somewhere in the space between universes, the Celestials watched and remembered the green giant who'd learned that true strength came not from limitless power, but from knowing when to use it and when to show mercy instead. May the Force be with you. More stories await.